Five, four, three.
Good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me, my hetero life mate, all my feelings. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. This is going to be a doozy.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. What is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy podcast is your weekly movie show where we ask you to go watch a movie, you watch it, come back to us, and we break it down for you. And this month of August, we decided to talk about the stuff that is going on behind the scenes, especially for movies that have disastrous productions. The movie that inspired this entire month is actually the movie we're going to talk about today, which is Apocalypse Now. Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. Feelings. When was the first time you've ever seen Apocalypse Now?
I was about 7.
Okay.
My stepdad loved
Really bad.
My stepfather loved military films, so like I grew up on watching like Hamburger Hill, Platoon, Apocalypse Now.
Beautiful. I've seen Apocalypse Now really, really late in the game. I think I was 18 years old. The first I've ever heard of Apocalypse Now was a very famous SNL skit that they did about the disaster behind the scenes.
Oh, gotcha.
And I've actually watched Heart of Darkness, which is the documentary done about the movie before actually watching the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I knew about the entire debacle, and then I've actually known about the debacle, and then I've actually went to see, actually rented out the movie and watched it. Kind of a flip-floppy, thing, a way of going by it, because I've watched Platoon before Apocalypse Now. I've watched like Vietnam movies and stuff, but
did you see Full Metal Jacket before this?
Yes, I have. So going to watch Apocalypse Now later on, it was like, oh, this is why everybody's doing it like this.
Yeah.
Before Apocalypse Now, there was no Vietnam movie that actually went to the soldier level, I would
There, yeah.
and then showed it like everything. Now, tonight's show is going to be a little bit, a little bit off kilter. We're going to talk about a lot that was going on behind the scenes. There's just so many. We kind of teased it last week. There are so many moving parts with this movie. We're probably going to miss a lot because
it is a miracle that this movie was ever fully made.
Yeah, there's a lot to like budget wise and time wise, location wise. There's so many moving parts. So if we miss anything, please write it down in the chat. Or if you're a part of the replay gang and you're watching this way after, please comment section down below if we missed anything. It's not intentional. I have really detailed notes, or let's say I have notes that kind of remind me of several different things. All My Feelings has got more detailed notes than me, but I've seen a guy break everything down like to about 22 parts. And I've also refreshed myself on Heart of Darkness. So I've been preparing for this show for at least 3.5 weeks. So
that's why, again, you say that I have detailed notes. So I have like the overview, and as soon as I bring up the general topic, then you can just dive on in, as Roger from American Dad would say.
There's a lot of stuff. So we're gonna structure things.
I was gonna say, just real quick aside, funny story, personal story.
Sure.
The first time I was able to actually reference this film was after I was watching an episode of Seinfeld with one of my friends when we were in middle school. Because that's when Peterman goes out to, like, he leaves the catalog, and Elaine goes to find him, and basically he becomes Kurtz.
Yes.
It's like, what you and Aaron boy. And at the end, she shows him the catalog that she did with the urban sombrero. The horror.
The horror.
The horror. I was like, that's Apocalypse Now. My friend's like, what?
Exactly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, strap yourselves in because it's going to be a doozy. All right, let's start with the segment that would probably dominate the entire show.
Pretty much.
It's called Behind the Screens. It's called Behind the Screens. No, it's not. Jesus.
Sound production, take 2.
This is why you don't try new things right before.
This is why you don't try new things live on the show. Right. Apparently my Stream Deck actually works. I just pressed the wrong button. Okay. We'll say hello to the chat. We'll say hello to Tony the Tiger, Penny, and Keely Chow in the chat. Hello. And all the lurkers from the Salty Nerd podcast raid. Thank you very much for joining us. And here we go. We turn in Behind the Screens is where we turn to All My Feelings, get the lowdown on everything that is behind the scenes, production wise. Let's start this mega thing.
So we're going to start first back in 1939.
Yeah, it goes this far. Yeah, that far.
So originally, Orson Welles was the first to attempt to adapt, and RKO Pictures actually was originally fully backed him, and the production was actually about to get underway, but at the time there was a $1 million budget, which was gigantic for the time.
Yep.
And given Wells's anti-fascist bent, RKO Pictures did not want to back it because they didn't want to back any project that had any kind of political leaning.
Okay. Which,
in retrospect, had it been a couple years later, they'd be like, yeah, make it. Let's go.
Yep.
So So after this, don't feel bad for Mr. Wells, because after RKO dropped the project completely, Wells just went, I'm just gonna make this little project of mine called Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
It's not a big movie at all. It's not one of the most important films ever made.
small one, just a small little one. But they did. I don't know if you have it in your notes. He did have a full-on reading, like a radio reading of
Yes.
Heart of Darkness.
Yep, he did.
And that kind of span into that movie. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. It was also how he almost got a full production of War of the Worlds made.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, moving forward, we're going to jump about, I would say about 25, 26 years or so.
Give or take, yeah.
To John Milius. Now, the reason why John Milius was attracted to the actual possible adaptation of Heart of Darkness was because one of his professors almost gave it to him as a dare.
Yeah, that story's a little bit strange because John Milius actually talked about it in 2 different interviews that I've seen, and both of them kind of give a weird, like, different version.
Different interpretation, yeah.
But it's his version, but different takes of it.
Takes of it, yeah. But, well, essentially what the overall kind of narrative said that, like, no one was able to, quote unquote, lick Heart of Darkness, as in able to actually fully adapt the screenplay.
Yes, it's one of the things he said was, my professor said it's an unadaptable book for a movie script specifically.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, okay.
Kind of like Confederate Dunces, which we've talked about before.
Yep. Yep.
That's a cursed project. That's a film that will never be made.
Yeah.
But so we have Milius. He just, he also brought in some of his fellow film school graduates, some guys named, George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
And it was actually planned to originally be shot on 16 millimeter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is nuts to think about.
And more importantly, it was supposed to be directed by George Lucas.
Correct.
And even more importantly, they wanted to make it and that's like a new thing. They wanted to make it like a documentary style movie. So a fictional movie, but done in a documentary style way.
Yep. Correct.
Sorry if I traded
on.
No,
It's fine. Let's see here. So, actually, production hit snags immediately because Coppola and Lucas were working on 2 separate projects at the time.
Yes.
And they couldn't get it done. Coppola ended up revisiting the project as his production company, American Zoetrope, and got approved originally for a budget of $12 million initially. Now, from there, you can tell us more about his production company.
Zoetrope Productions was a company that was set up by Francis Ford Coppola, and what they intended on doing is create a company that was separate from the Hollywood studios machine. They set it up in San Francisco, which is, we know what it is today. But what they wanted to do is have like one big project that was not published, but like sort of distributed by a big Hollywood studio that would bring in the money, and the money would help fund all these different projects. From they took people from their UCLA and I think it's SCU, the South California school. So UCLA and
USC.
USC.
Yeah.
Cherry pick friends and have writers, directors, all that stuff making these indie films using these big budget stuff that they've already sold as to one of the studios. One of these big projects was supposed to be Apocalypse Now. not the major one. THX 1135 or whatever it is, that was supposed to bring in the money to fund Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Didn't quite work out the way that they thought.
Nope, did not. Nope, not at all.
Nope.
Now we can kind of go to a little bit of just initial problems. So let's start with Mr. Harvey Keitel.
Yes.
Oh boy. Now, this is a problem when you want to shoot on set, you bring on an actor, fly them all the way out to the Philippines.
Oh, wait, you skipped the best part.
Oh no, we're gonna we'll
No. Before even Harvey Keitel, you skipped the best part. I thought you already had it. So Apocalypse Now was set to shoot in 1969 while during the war, and they wanted to shoot it in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay. As a 16 millimeter thing directed by George Lucas. They couldn't even get the army to approve it because it was shot in a war zone.
Yep.
So Coppola said, well, okay, we can't do it now. We'll wait. So he went and did Godfather and Godfather Part 2. And only then went back to Apocalypse Now.
So when he finally got on set,
yeah.
Like, oh, so it is Apocalypse Now. Oh, yeah. I get it.
Exactly.
So when you bring an actor, fly them halfway across the world, you should be pretty damn sure that you want their performance.
Yes.
Yes. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Keitel was fired and replaced 7 days into shooting. And after he had done some of Willard's major opening roles, like the opening, like the monologue with the Major General and a very baby-faced Harrison Ford, which still freaks me out to no end.
Yeah, you have to realize if you watch the movie and you're like, oh, Harrison Ford is in this. It's a very tiny role. Harrison Ford was paid, what, $600 a week?
Yep.
And he did it before he shot Star Wars because the movie took so long
to make.
And,
oh, God, yeah.
And they paid him for 2 weeks. 1 week he did it with Harvey Keitel, and the other week he did it with Martin Sheen.
Yep. Oh, Sander, don't worry about it. We're gonna get into the issues with when it came to Filipino army.
Oh yeah, there's a whole story that starts before they started losing the helicopters. There's a backstory to the backstory.
Yeah. So essentially, after having a lot of really principal photography done with Keitel, they just went, nah, I don't like this guy. So they brought in Martin Sheen. And that was the first of many, 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 many extensive reshoots that they were going to have to do throughout this. Like overall, it was what, 320 some odd days?
I have exactly the amount of days. So shooting days, it's 238. But it's in the span of about 2 years because they had to break and go back home a couple of times.
Yes.
Once was for like Christmas, and it was, a break was like 3 months. Then they had to break for 6 weeks because of Martin Sheen. There's a lot.
Everything with Martin Sheen. That also there's the typhoon and
a lot of big breaks along the way. But it's 238 shooting days.
Correct. I think overall it was he had actually shot over 1 million feet of film.
Yeah, something crazy. Yeah. Something really crazy.
And it kind of just went, almost $30 million of budget. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, kind of.
Not a big deal,
Kind of.
Whatever. It's a couple of, tens of millions of dollars between friends, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of Mr. Sheen, again, please feel free to interject because I know you have a little bit more extensive notes there. But
Yeah, I'm like three steps behind you. We
no,
didn't
go
like
right ahead then.
before even shooting the first week, they wanted to pick a place like they couldn't shoot in Vietnam because it was just after the war and it was like filled with Ho Chi Minh people. So they went to Cambodia, they went to like several other places, ended up wanting to shoot in Australia. They found a place in Australia that kind of looks good, but it wasn't like exact. They couldn't get the rice paddies to match, but
Yeah.
they had like they already settled a lot of stuff with the Australian Army because the Australian Army had a lot of surplus from the Vietnam War from the USA. But then the US interjected. Do you know who the guy who actually said no? He's a very famous person. He was the minister, like the Minister of Defense or Department of Defense guy. Do you know who that was?
Is it Oliver North?
Donald Rumsfeld.
Oh, it was Rumsfeld. Oh wow, yeah.
Donald Rumsfeld put the kibosh on shooting in Australia with like American stuff because he said
Actual military equipment from
Because
America. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
the American Army or the Department of Defense did not approve any like U.S. Army involvement because they wanted to have creative control over the script. And Francis Ford Coppola said, "Fuck no, like no."
Now, I'm just thinking, could you imagine if Rumsfeld got control of it? It would be one giant propaganda piece. It's like, oh no, you should actually just join the army. Nobody on that P boat would have died.
Exactly. So they actually found a nice place in the Philippines, and when Coppola kind of talked to one of his friends there because he shot a movie in the Philippines. I don't have the name. I'm sorry. It's like a little bit of a piece from Heart of Darkness. I think he said it. He said, "Oh, don't shoot in the Philippines during May and November. That's the rainy seasons.
It's
you'll
a monsoon. It's a literal monsoon.
monsoon season. You'll be screwed." And Coppola said, "Nah, it'll be fine." Which kind of fucked him over at the end. But yeah, so they chose the Philippines because the rice paddies look the same. And the fact that they heard they can hire people to build sets for $3 a day ended up being $1 a day. So the art production guy that went there to actually build the sets was like, "Oh, I can hire 3 people instead of 1 for the same amount of budget. Cool. Let me just build this enormous Cambodian looking temple with 300-pound rocks because it's just easy to build. It's not costly. So let's just do that."
Do you have that in your notes? How the Laotian government turned them down flatly?
Laotian?
Laos.
Oh, no. But the Cambodian government said no because fuck you, Americans.
Well, no, actually, the government from Laos basically told them, "We don't want our country to glorify a losing war."
Okay. And
Yeah.
now because they filmed in the Philippines, they wanted to use the local government's equipment, hire their equipment. The local government said flat out, "No, we're fighting insurgents in the South Philippines. We need every piece of equipment we've got, like helicopters." There was a guy, his name is Volpe. I don't remember what exactly he was. He's like an Italian guy. He had connections with the Marcus, the head guy, the head Filipino guy, and he told him, "Look, these Americans are paying really well. So when Coppola, he arranged for Coppola to meet with Marcus. They met, and Marcus said, "Whatever you want, you can get." Now the thing is, but they told him, "We might need them while you're shooting." So, um,
Yeah, they had choreographed actually like flight patterns to go through, and it was like they would just swerve off. Like they have to go to the south of the country now.
yeah, there's a whole deal with it. We're gonna get to it when we get to the Valkyrie scene, but during the shoot with the helicopters, there was a Filipino general on set the whole time with a big communicator thing, and he just might shoot you down okay, go, and immediately you're losing 2, 3, 5 helicopters all at once, and they had to paint U.S. Army on the back of it
Yep.
every day, because every day they have to wipe it off when they went out to the field to fight, the communists or whatever.
That's why I think it's more prevalent in the Redux than it is in the theatrical version. But you can actually see if you look at the helicopters, they especially during the Flight of the Valkyries, that scene, you can actually look at where it actually has painted, and the paint, just as in I do believe it was Lord of War. Remember when he got the fake plane, and how when it started to go, the paint started to just melt on the side because it was running due to the wind pressure. Yeah, the same thing was happening, but no, this was just live on set, and they couldn't fix it. Because it's like, hey, this is one of the only shots we're going to have today to get this done. We have to do it now. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. All right. We're going to stop here because we're going to do our first game of the night. I can tell there's more people now than before. I wanted to do it right at the start of the show, but I wanted to wait till people kind of trickled in. So we're going to do a quick little stop in the show for my favorite game. It is called Missing Marquee. All right. The Stream Deck works. All right. Missing Marquee is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off. We display them, and you guys in the chat and All My Feelings will have to guess which movie this is. And we are here. There we go. Toughie. This is a tough one. Not many people have seen this movie. Chat, this is all you.
Mm-hmm.
This is all you. This is not Benjamin Button. No. This is not Benjamin Button. Although a good guess. Good guess. This is I don't want to say an indie movie, but a very small little flick. The chat is quiet. All My Feelings, what is this?
I don't remember.
Ooh. Chat stomped. All My Feelings is stomped. This is Charlotte Gray.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I haven't seen it. I know
This one I know, but
yeah. I'm gonna punch it in a little bit.
It's pretty much in the poster. I mean, what it is.
It is. Sander Hammerschlag has got it. It is Cliffhanger. Yeah. Becky's got it too.
Yep.
Awesome.
I know I've never seen this.
I've seen it with my wife, and I don't like it.
I know for a fact I have never seen it. Do you know why I know that?
Why?
Because I've only seen 2 movies with Renee Zellweger in them, and this is not one of them.
It is not Bridget Jones 2. It is, as Becky said it, Down with Love. Down with Love. Yeah. It's a terrible movie.
This movie is actually a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, but I've only seen it once because later Jim Carrey is not as great as
he's very hit or miss in his later roles. That's very true.
I kind of liked Yes Man with Zooey Deschanel. It's a
It's all
fun
right.
little movie. It's not, blow your mind movie, but
Becky's got it.
Becky's got it. Nice. Fun with Dick and Jane.
Can you punch in?
Yes.
I'm trying to determine which Ghostbusters this is. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Not going to say which one. This is, of course, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, this movie's really good.
I need to rewatch it.
It's fantastic.
Hmm.
But now the thing is, I know the entire plot of the film. Can I get the name right?
Oh, you got the name right.
It's
It
Glory.
is
Yeah.
Glory.
It's a great movie. One of the only films I actually like Matthew Broderick in.
Oh, this is a
Oh my
terrible
god, this movie's so bad.
movie sucks. And I told you
And
this.
again, just as in the show, though, to be fair, just in the show, the sidekick steals the entire movie.
Yeah, just like in the show, the sidekick steals the show. It is
The Green
the
Hornet.
Green Hornet. Ugh. This is a good movie I need to rewatch. I haven't watched it in a bit. I watched another movie that he did, I think one before this and one after this. I watched it on the way to the US.
I'm thinking that's what. Yeah, I think you're right, Paul. This is Man on Fire, right?
This is Man on Fire. And I watched American Gangster.
Oh,
I
that's.
don't remember which one came first.
Oh God, this movie's so bad, but it's good. It actually spawned what I think Tom, if he was still in there, he could tell me how many sequels, how many direct to video sequels this had. It's so bad. Species, yes.
Species is correct. And last one. And
yeah.
this is a great movie. I love it so
It was okay.
It didn't do as well as I thought it would.
It actually kind of bombed.
No, I think so. So. There we go. Sander Hammerschlag. This is Surrogates. I really like that movie.
Yeah.
I really, really like that movie. Yep. All right. Cool. Let's.
Yeah, two films in there that I have never seen before.
You haven't watched Surrogates?
No. The Renee Zellweger film and the Chet film. Yeah.
Didn't miss much.
I'm not surprised.
Here's a new guy on the show. I've never seen your name before, even though it's kind of neat. Mike. Love to talk movies. I love to talk about movies too. This is why this whole channel exists. This is why this show exists. All right. Back to reality, or back to the movie. We were kind of deviating between Keitel and Sheen to sort of the origins of where the locations are. But yes, Keitel fired after the first week. And it's so weird because there's a story about Keitel. I don't know if you have it in your notes about you said he didn't fit. Keitel said that he was the only Marine there.
Correct.
And he didn't understand why he didn't fit the role.
Yeah. The only one that actually was also a fellow person that was in the military at the time, oddly enough, was R. Lee Ermey.
Yes, Lee Ermey. I always get his name wrong. Sander Hammerschlag said it before. He mentioned it. Lee Ermey. Yeah. Late great. Do go on.
No, but from there, I was going to go straight into Sheen's issue. So if you had anything else.
Go into Sheen. So Sheen, Keitel got this fired from the thing. Martin Sheen comes in. He already read for the role, but didn't get picked. And then they called him and said, "Can you just, hop over to the Philippines?" Took 48 hours, and he was there. And he kind of realized, oh shit, I'm in it for the long haul.
It's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have came here.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Sheen is one of several people who suffered from many medical maladies, most notably the fact that he had a massive heart attack on set.
Yes.
This caused what I think it was 6 to 8 weeks of production delays. They had to use body doubles with his. They had to ADR his voice in for things. They also had his brother come in, Joe Estevez, as a
Yes.
body double.
Yes. To do, I think it's behind the back scene with Marlon Brando.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the studio was absolutely just completely out of their minds, just freaked out because they assumed that at one point in time it was actually it was going to be written in Variety that Martin Sheen had died on set.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his heart attack story is so bizarre because he felt bad. He was 36 years old at the time, but he was smoking 3 packs a day. So he felt real bad one day, and then he went on the bus to go to the set because they couldn't arrange like regular travel. Some of the sets had to be flown like in with 8 to 6 people because the plane was that small. And we're talking about the whole crew had to be airlifted at a certain point. But he was taking the bus, and then he felt so bad, he like left the bus, and somebody found him on the side of the road.
Crawling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then they brought him to the hospital, and then they called Coppola. Oh, by the way, one of your actors is here. He had a heart attack.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yep.
It's insane.
So moving on from there, not only with those setbacks, we have due to Matthew, you mentioned the fact that they were able to get labor for cheap. So
Yes.
building the sets practically made actually a lot more sense than to try to. Again, CGI was also very, very in its early infancy. So it was like,
what CGI?
Well, any kind of computer generated effect.
Oh no, there's nothing.
No. I know.
Practical.
No, but it was easier for them to do it practically, except for the fact when they had to constantly keep rebuilding everything.
Well,
because of the fact it wasn't just, they had the issues with the delays. They also had the fact that obviously with the explosives and everything having to destroy and then rebuild it in case that they have to do another practical shot. Yeah. But then, they just had this thing called Typhoon Olga come in.
Yes. So they ran a little bit late, apparently. They ran a little bit late. And there's an interview in Heart of Darkness where whatever his wife or somebody else asked Coppola, it's somebody from Hollywood that came to actually talk to Coppola on set. It's like, aren't you guys a little bit late? And he's like, no, it's fine. It's a couple of days late. And by then he was already about 4 months late into production. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a couple of days. But yeah, they ran into monsoon season. And at first they thought, well, we'll just have a lot of rainy shots. And they kind of did. But then the typhoon hit and it blew off. What do you have notes on how many sets it actually blew off?
Well, I know it completely destroyed all of Kurtz's compound.
Yes.
It destroyed the was it Duong or Duolong? The bridge scene.
Yes, the bridge scene completely destroyed.
It was washed away completely.
Yeah.
Also the USO site.
Yes, the Playboy Bunny area.
Yeah.
That was completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Along with about 10,000 lights or something. Yeah.
They could not catch a break, and they had to shut down overall due to Olga. What was it for 8 weeks?
After the typhoon, they had to wait a week, then go do damage assessments, then 3 months of rebuilding.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah. But they were lucky with the Cambodian set. You know why? Because of Brando.
Oh yeah.
You didn't touch about Brando.
We're gonna touch on Mr. Brando. What's so funny is, we started with Brando being a pretentious piece of shit, and we're gonna bookend this month with him doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep going.
So for Brando, one of the most important thing is he just showed up on set completely overweight, shocking absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody had no idea. He had actually only read 2 pages of the script. He had never read the original book at all. Nothing. He refused to learn any of his lines. Of course, because it's Brando. He fought with Coppola on absolutely everything.
Including the ending.
Yeah.
Including the ending, which is so strange. So strange.
What's so great too is the cinematographer of this film, Vittorio Sotaro, does not get enough credit. The whole shading effect and how he's always cast in shadow was his idea in order to hide the weight that Brando had gained, and also it kind of gives this overlying the battle between good and evil, that this juxtaposition between the two. Because whenever it's shot at their beginning initial encounter, notice that who's in shadow and who's in light. And as they progress, who becomes they kind of switch roles.
Yeah, and there's a thing with Brando. They paid him $3 million, right? That was his salary.
Didn't he get $1 million up front too?
And yeah, and he said he's available only for 3 weeks. That's it, right? And because of the delays, those 3 weeks that was scheduled were in jeopardy. He said that if they don't do it when they set it up, he's just going to keep that upfront million.
He's going to keep the money, yeah.
Not show up.
Yep.
Not show up. And United Artists that actually flipped the bill for half of this was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yep.
And they had to, change a few things in order to make it work. He only did it for 3 weeks. That's why they brought in Estevez to be the body double, because they just could not have Brando in this.
Yep. Which again, Becky, yes, to that point, as we discussed several weeks ago with the Island of Dr. Moreau, it's like, why did they hire Brando when they heard these horror stories about him? Why would they hire him again?
It's mainly because Coppola was like, he saved Brando's career.
Yeah, he did.
Because Brando was unhireable before The Godfather.
Correct.
Literally unhireable in Hollywood. He saved his career, but he also kind of gave Coppola his Oscars. So he felt like, I have to do it with the guys I know. I have to do it with the guy that brought me to the table. And he did, and he actually did get an Oscar for it. But yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I do believe that Brando's portrayal of Kurtz is one of his best performances in his entire career.
Yeah, but there's so few moments with him in the entire movie.
Yeah.
But it actually is marketed heavily on Brando.
Yeah.
It's really strange because he doesn't really hold weight. He does, but he doesn't really hold weight for the entire movie.
I'm sorry. We are seeing it literally on screen. Evidence to the contrary.
But yeah, but his his actual, like, his scenes are really profound. That's why it was so great, and that's why he got an Oscar for it. Not him, but Coppola did. The portrayal was fantastic. And there is a certain point where he also had body doubles to do back shots
Yeah, of course he did.
because he already left.
Yeah.
And just because the shoot took so long and they had Brando for such a limited time, most of his shots were done at the very beginning of the shoot.
Yep.
And not after. So they had to arrange the ending first and then shoot the whole other thing to match it. Continue.
Which the only difference between that and a Tarantino film is he just, put it in sequential order.
Exactly.
Just as an aside, just a query for you, my friend.
Yes.
Whenever you looked at Chef on the P boat,
Yes.
does he not look like Tom Hardy? Or is it
No,
just
he
me?
does not.
In certain shots from the side, he is like, he looks like.
And he
Tom
doesn't
Hardy.
really look like Fred Forrester either. Because
No,
I know Fred
Not
Forrester.
Fred Forrester now. No, he does not. Because with the mustache, I was like, he looks like Tom Hardy when he was in Bronson.
I don't know where your mind went, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Next.
Well,
Oh, you want to do the Valkyrie scene? Let's do the Valkyrie scene now.
yeah, go ahead. Shoot.
Okay. So, Valkyrie scene was the trickiest, the most dangerous, the most injury-prone scene ever devised in 1976. They had a lot of issues with that scene. Now, I'm looking for it here. It's probably... There we go. That's the start of it. So, first of all, we mentioned the Filipino army. Now, in one of those days, one of the shooting days, one of the first ones, they had that full fleet of helicopters going into the to the village, and they had to stop because, like I said, there was always a general on hand. He stopped them and he took 5 helicopters away. Why? Because just 10 miles from the shoot, there was a battle going on. So it was like, okay, we're gonna take off for today. That was like the first of the problems. Then, because it's sort of arranged like a dance, they had to rehearse with these Filipino pilots that got paid really, really well to do overtime and all that thing. But because they had to keep not actually taking the helicopters, but sometimes they actually had to take the pilots away, the pilots kept being replaced. So they didn't know all the maneuvers.
Yep.
So they had to start shooting just the flight itself, okay? Not all the explosive and everything. And had to stop, call everybody out, and start doing rehearsals again with the pilots because they couldn't do anything. Like they didn't know what to do.
Yep.
They didn't have any communications with the pilots. They had to go through that general. There was a massive language barrier between the Filipinos, the translation, and also the cinematographer was, like you said, he was Italian. He barely spoke English.
Yep.
Francis Ford Coppola barely spoke Italian, and they had to coordinate one of the most trickiest cinematical scene in the entire shoot.
Yep.
Which was a problem. Now, because they couldn't do the rehearsals, if you know the scene, there's a moment where they have to land and people had to go out of the helicopter. And because it's a close-up shot, there were no stunt guys. There were actually people.
Yep.
So people were this close from the back rotor, which was, if anybody took one step a little bit too late, a little bit too early.
Hey, let's not bring up Twilight Zone again, man.
Yeah, exactly. Would have been Twilight Zone section area. It's bad. And then came the actual explosives. Now, because there was no communication between the pilots and the demolition guys, the pilots startled with a helicopter 10 feet in the air. Startled. Now, remember I just said about the back rotor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a real big issue. And other things. They detonated something, and they started a fire, and the fire destroyed their equipment. So the camera cases melted. The fire retardant suits that they had, those got melted. And all that because they blew up a hut, and they didn't blow up the correct hut. Yeah,
That can happen. Yep.
that can happen. And then, of course, they had to. There's the scene that got replicated in Tropic Thunder, that they had planes coming in, that they had to repaint it as Navy, U.S. Navy.
Yes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the scene where Danny McBride said "big old titties"?
Big old titties. Now, they commissioned 4 Phantom planes because they had to match what was the correct plane at the time.
Yeah.
The government sent them the wrong planes at first. Then when they did send them the correct planes, they sent them without the fake bombs. So they couldn't drop anything.
Oh. Oof.
So they had to do the same thing several times until they got it right. Then what they did was they had a few drums of gasoline and then a pipe. So if you look at the explosion, it starts off as an explosion and then it looks like a line of
fire, yeah.
and then it goes up in the air. Yeah, they filled it with 4 times as much gasoline as they actually needed. The people had to be back a little bit further away than they should have, because when it went off, they felt the heat
wave. Yeah.
Yeah. And Robert Duvall said, well, that's strange. I can feel the heat. It shouldn't be correct. Yeah.
No, that shouldn't happen.
But yeah, the whole having the Valkyrie sound was a spurg of genius by somebody. I don't remember if it was Coppola himself, but somebody said it's because Coppola's father is like a composer, and maybe he thought about doing this. No, it was written kind of in the scene by John Milius in the original draft that he wrote. Mm-hmm. Because it's actually a joint venture between Coppola and Milius.
Yep.
And when they interviewed Milius about the script, he said, well, all the parts that you know and love in Apocalypse Now, that's me. All the rest, that's Coppola. Which was strange. He said, well, I wrote the Valkyrie scene with the Valkyrie music in it. Yep. I wrote the Playboy bunnies. I wrote all the Kurtz stuff was mostly Milius. But the ending, like how it actually happens, that's Coppola.
Which you can kind of see because Coppola, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a genius auteur, but he tends to get a little bit long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole Kilgore Colonel and his fascination with
Surfing?
surfing,
Yeah.
that's John Milius
Yep.
because it
Because
was
Milius was a surfer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And all that. But yeah, the whole scene was incredibly difficult. It took several days because when they started shooting, they had to match the sun. So they had to do it at the same day, like different days, same
At the
time.
same time, because
And
otherwise it would
when
look
they
like a
missed
jump
it,
cut. Yeah.
it was just we're done for today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're done for today. They used a little bit too much demolition, like explosive demolition in the helicopter that gets blown.
Yeah, with the bomber, the girl bomber. I do have the note about that.
Go
Where
ahead, go.
no, you're on a roll. Go, keep going.
They didn't know how to do it in order to make it go pop and then collapse.
Yep.
So they had to put it on stilts. And they had to explode the stilts in order for it to collapse. So it was bomb on the helicopter and bomb on the stilts. So it was a little bit too much explosives. So it went off. And you can tell one of the stunt guys get ejected off the helicopter. That wasn't planned.
Yep.
Yeah, that wasn't planned. Another thing to add, there are shots that you take that the cinematographer took from the side of the helicopter looking in. They were actually airborne, and he sat on a like a wooden box outside of the helicopter, and he was strapped in with one belt, and he shot inwards. Yeah, tilted on the side.
Again, it's always just a wonder that more people did not get hurt during the making of this film. And also, could you imagine the liability suits in today's world? This would never get made. There's absolutely
the only guy who can make stuff like that is like Tom Cruise. That's it.
Yeah, because he would sign all the waivers. He'd be like, I will not sue. I'm doing this. I know I'm an adrenaline junkie. So
Yeah, and in the Heart of Darkness, in the documentary, there's a shot where you see there's the big Hueys, that's the big Bell helicopters.
Yep.
So the big Bell helicopters, and there's the small little tiny helicopters. I think I used to call them Defenders, but they're not really Defenders. They have some sort of a name, Hornets or something like that. There's a shot where you see the Bell helicopter, one of the shots where the cinematographer shot from the outside, and the small helicopter seems like it's close. It's actually closer than the allowed sort of distance. It's really, really close. Paul says Little Bird. Yeah, I don't remember what the name of it. I think they're called Defenders. So, yeah. This particular shot was also very dangerous. The Huey cannot support the weight of the PBR. What they needed to do was literally strip it from everything that they could in order to make that shot. And when he dropped it, it's half an accident, half a mistake little thing. Because in order to pick up a full-on PBR, you needed a Chinook style helicopter, which the Filipino army did not have at all.
Yeah. Well, because you can even see there, because you can see that just by looking at the boat is completely stripped of all of its engines.
Yes. Yeah. And if you can tell, it's really close to the beach. So they lifted it just a little bit, moved it a little bit into the water, and just dropped it. They just couldn't hold the weight. The Filipino pilots were extremely upset. They were like, we're going to like go down with this helicopter in this boat.
Yep.
Like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Right. Keep going. because that's all I have for the Valkyrie thing.
Valkyrie scene. So we talked about some of the other problematic actors. One of the most problematic actors who had kind of a bit part, really, was Mr. Dennis Hopper.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't have a lot of notes about him, but go ahead.
He essentially was doing his audition for Blue Velvet.
Kind of.
Apparently, when he was on set, most of the time, he was just completely out of his gourd.
Yeah, he was one of the people on set that was on a lot of drugs.
Well, they said his favorite was he was doing 7 to 10 drops of window pane a day.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, Sander. Yeah, going back to the Valkyrie scene. Why do you sit on your house? There's a story about that, but please finish your Dennis Hopper thing, and I'll go back to the Valkyrie.
Yes. So anyway, but the fact that he was so intoxicated, they had to do so many reshoots and retakes of him. Coppola got so mad that it was actually Vittorio Statoro, the actual cinematographer, went up and slapped him in the face.
Wow. I didn't have that in my notes.
And it was after that's when we got the big stammering speech that he has when Willard is in the bamboo cage.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. He also wanted to, like, either because he was intoxicated or drunk or high or whatever, he messed with Coppola's lines a lot on purpose.
Yep.
And like you said before, he, like Brando, he kind of argued with Coppola a lot about his lines and how things should be. And Coppola's like, just do the lines, dude. Not the lines, not the Coke lines, dude.
Yes. Well, and also too, you know, the line where it's Kurtz is sitting there and he bursts out in one line when it's when Willard is sitting there and you have the photojournalist kind of yammering on at him as Kurtz is reading poetry, and he goes, "Shut up, you mutt."
Yeah.
That's improv.
Yeah, probably.
Because you know what? Brando hated Hopper.
I think everybody hated Hopper on that set.
Well, the thing is, but it's like unprofessionalism recognizes unprofessionalism.
I think I've seen one of the interviews that I saw actually after the Mario Brothers thing that he said, I was really out of my gourd during a lot of, like, after Easy Rider and stuff.
Yep.
I was really out of it. It was like everything I've done till a certain point was like lucky that you got a performance out of me.
Yeah.
Which is so.
Which again, we always mention it because, you know, Blue Velvet is one of those performances where you go home.
Yeah, he was so out of
what?
it. He was so out of it.
And the first time you watch it, you don't know if it's because it's also a David Lynch film, so it's always going to be way out there. But then he just goes way over the top.
Yeah, there's a lot to go into. Maybe we'll do it one day. We'll talk about Dennis Hopper's and.
Well, I wouldn't mind doing a David Lynch month, but that's just me.
We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah. So where were we? I'm gonna head back to my notes if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So there. Typhoon, we talked about that typhoon. All right, I'm going to go back to the Valkyrie scene because Senator Hammerschlag kind of reminded me something. The bit about the helmet and the hats, it kind of have context with the actual production of the movie. The helmet thing where they sat on the helmet in order to not get their balls blown off, never get out of the boat, Meth. We'll talk about that in a bit. So the helmet thing was a thing with the airborne cavalry because they lost a lot of people riding those Hueys because of just regular fire from the ground, not like 50 cal, not something crazy. People just used their AKs to shoot those helicopters, and they weren't flying like real high. They were flying real low in order for the M60s on the side to actually get
hit,
to kill people. So they got blown off a lot. And one of the things that Coppola worked with people that were there, so military advisors, all that stuff, and actual soldiers that were there that were not approved by the U.S. military. And they told him those stories. Plus, they told him all the LSD stories and the drug stories that they told Coppola and Milius, by the way, that kind of went into the script. And those were one of the stories that they heard, and they were like, really? That was the reason? And they kind of get incorporated into the script, which was very innovative for 1979. Remember, 1979, this is before Platoon, before even First Blood. They didn't really talk about the soldier aspect, the PTSD aspect, the drug aspect of Vietnam, because it did really start with Apocalypse Now. And that's why it's so monumental of a production of a movie. And those little things that got, slipped through because Coppola was so independent and self-funded. One of those scenes was Never Get Off the Boat. Do you have any notes about that?
No, actually, I don't. Go ahead.
Okay. So it's very simple. The Never Get Off the Boat thing came from American soldiers. When they had to land for supplies, they had to land for anything. Those animals, not necessarily tigers, because they were so drugged out, high, just to pass the time and have to deal with the PTSD, Never Get Off the Boat is that Never Get Off the Boat because people got lost in the fucking jungle.
Yeah.
Some of them lost their lives to various animals, various things that were in the jungle. And
Well, not to mention the Viet Cong at the time was
and
they deployed
literally
massive amounts of booby
warfare.
traps.
Yeah, literal guerrilla warfare that was in the jungle. So not necessarily lose their lives, but lose a limb, lose their lose hands, whatever, right? Ear blown off, all that stuff. In the movie, it was an actual tiger. Sanger Hammerslag said it. Yes, it's an actual tiger. And the tiger handler was not an American. He was a full-on Filipino. No communication whatsoever.
Hi, tiger. Bye, tiger.
Which is terrible because Fred Forrester's initial reaction was completely
real. Yep.
completely genuine. Oh, it was, The liabilities factor in this is fucking insane. It's insane. And we didn't mention the fact that, and I did show it on screen when you talked about his Martin Sheen's heart attack. When he filmed that scene, he was completely drunk. When you see him
in the hotel room? Yeah.
When you see him facing those demons, he actually went there. He actually faced those, I'm an alcoholic demons. I need to quit smoking, quit drinking demons. That was completely him. When he put his fist through the mirror, he just miscalculated. He actually went through the mirror. The blood that you see is actual him bleeding. He sliced is like a side of his thumb, and Coppola. It looks disjointed because Coppola said cut, and Sheen, even though he was completely drunk, he said no, keep going. I'm okay. I'll deal with it. So the blood was genuine blood. There's no fake blood in this. Him crying out, being so crazy, completely genuine, and it was a real movie magic. And in Heart of Darkness, you can actually have snippets from the backstage. Coppola saying, can we cut now, Martin? Are we done? And Sheen is so far gone, he's not even answering.
Yep.
So far out there. But it's so memorable because later on they filmed, so that was just the one night. Later on they filmed they basically reshot the Harrison Ford scene where he goes and actually gets the brief. And they mention what's up with the arm? What's up with your hand? And he's like, yeah, that's
No,
an
cut
operator.
about fishing. R&R.
I went fishing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fishing accident. Anything else?
I was going to say one of the other things too is we did have, again, Martin Sheen's unfortunate medical incident, but Coppola himself had several.
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah. One of his major issues that he had was he was under such just outrageous traumatic stress during the production of the film, with all the delays and everything. He suffered from multiple panic attacks, and at one point in time, I'm not sure if you have this in your notes, but he actually had an epileptic seizure.
Yes, I don't have it in my notes, but yes.
Yeah.
His wife, Eleanor, was like, oh my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it was may or may not been in front of one of his kids.
Yeah.
Not sure about that. It was at home, like in Manila or whatever they were staying. Yeah.
And it was the first time he had one in over 15 years. During the making of The Godfather, he's on record saying, like, I would make 10 Godfathers before I make another Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Sander Hammerslag said the final cut Blu-ray came with Heart of Darkness documentary. There's a whole thing about the Heart of Darkness documentary is why it actually exists. Coppola gave Eleanor a camera. I think it was 16 millimeter. Don't know. He gave her a budget for the actual film and for the film itself to go the reel itself. And he just told her to shoot in order for them to have something to show the press, sort of like how did they make this movie kind of a style thing that they could use. It sat for a long, long, long time in their attic at home. Not touched because they didn't even go to the press with it. In I think it was 1991, it was actually edited and added that what do you call it? The ADR, right? Everything was added in 1991, and it's after they worked on the Redux, they actually worked on the final, like Sander said, the final cut, which is a little bit different from the Redux cut. They've added in the Heart of Darkness to the Blu-ray as sort of an addendum, sort of recognizing it as a full-on attachment to the movie.
As I said, as we discussed this backstage, because when we do talk about the film in a little bit, again we're gonna go very blitz it through it because obviously we're running out of time already. But so the difference between the theatrical and Redux is about an hour. I don't know what the standard. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the length on the final cut? Is it 3.5 hours as well? With
the final cut, I know it's a little bit longer from the redo, but not by a lot. You guys in the chat can tell us how much it is. There are technically 4 cuts of the movie. There's theatrical, director's cut, Redux, and final cut. I have 3. Oh, Sander has 3 versions: theatrical, Redux, and final. There's a director's cut too. I don't remember when it was out. I think
the director's cut came out before they did the Redux.
Yeah, before the Redux. Yeah. Before the Redux. Yeah. And I think they did the final cut because they had the Blu-ray, like enough room in the Blu-ray to include the final cut.
More information, yeah.
It's so far out there. We we intended on doing just the theatrical cut, but both of us actually only watched the Redux, which is
No, I watched the theatrical.
Oh, you watched the theatrical?
No, like I told you, like it was actually, as you mentioned, it's actually more difficult to find the theatrical cut than it is the actual Redux, which is
unless you
mind-blowing.
unless you actually bought the DVD at the time with the theatrical cut, or even have the VHS, it's really hard to get the theatrical cut.
Like
you have to go specifically. Yeah.
I don't know. Like you actually had to specify. Like I actually had to go through just regular Amazon to actually find the actual theatrical, because I thought that's what we were going to talk about today. Otherwise, I would have watched the Redux, because it is a better version of the film.
It is a better version.
Yeah,
it is. We can talk about what they cut away in the Redux. There's a fucking big sections that were cut, like massive sections. I think that's about it from all the production stuff. Like there's a lot more. Like the budget was I think you mentioned it, 12.
It was 12. It went up to
12 or 13. Really depends on who you ask. Coppola flipped 7.5 to 7, just the initial one. And they work with people from Ireland and the UK, sort of like pre-sell them the movie.
Yeah.
As distribution to get like easy money, but because it took so long, they were kind of really stressed on that money because it was a lot of money back then. Ended up having to pay one of the conditions of United Artists to actually give Coppola more money to actually make the budget, the 40 million budget, is we want our money back, and this movie has to make 40 million and above. Otherwise, we're going to ask for that money back, the extra money that they gave him. It's like it has to make 40 million. It made 89 to 90. Really depends which website you're looking at.
Well, and also too, to be fair, like as soon as it went to Cannes and won to Palme d'Or, it's like, well, maybe he's got something on his hands here.
Kind of. That's about it. It made money, plus it made a shit ton of money on the secondary market. Like a lot of money on the secondary market.
Well, again, as Sandra even mentioned, he mentioned just the 3 cuts, but also with the director's cut. Every single time there was a recut of the film, it just sold out.
I mean, till 85.
Yeah.
Just up till 85, it made a whole bunch of money. A whole bunch of money. Hi to you too. Right. I've seen you in the chat. I've seen you. All right, cool. Let's get into the movie, I guess. You know what? Let's do a stop here and we'll play our second game of the night, shall we? It is called Screen Fighter.
Round 1, fight.
Screen Fighter, for the uninitiated, is where we take 2 movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the 2, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with their significant other. 2 movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? And this is our first pairing of the night. But before we do that, theatrical 147 minutes, Redux 197, and Final Cut 183. The Final Cut is less than the Redux. So I've seen the most that you can see to prepare for this show. All right, Back to the Future Part 2 or The Color of Money.
Okay. Well, I do think The Color of Money is probably one of the best actual, pool billiards film ever made. Come on. It's Back to the Future Part 2. It's too good.
I asked my wife which one she would pick, and she's like, "Oh, for sure Back to the Future Part 2. And you're going to pick it too. So she picked for me. I really want to say The Color of Money.
It's a really great movie.
I've recently seen it. It's really that good. But Back to the Future Part 2, it's just so iconic. And our audience.
Super evil genius Biff. Come on. It's great.
The audience kind of agree. Diner or The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Both kind of, little out there, sort of small indie movies.
Oddly, Diner was one of the films I was thinking about for your birthday month this year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you picked Diner?
Diner, yeah. I love that movie.
I really want to pick The Life Aquatic, but it's such a strange little movie. Diner is a little bit more up my alley. Yeah. From the two. Thelma and Louise or The Karate Kid? You want me to pick first?
Oh, man.
You pick first. No hate here if you pick the wrong one.
Okay, I do. I got to go for it.
Go for it.
It's Thelma and Louise.
I knew it. Tell me why.
There's a reason why I picked that film.
Okay, tell me why. That's fine.
Not just because of the first real appearance of Brad Pitt outside of Tales from the Crypt.
It's a little bit gay, but okay.
Whatever.
Go ahead.
But also, I think it's just a very underrated story. I think it's a fantastic film overall. It's really well done. The only shot that's out of place, as we talked about when we discussed it, was the chase scene at the very end of the film. Everything else about the movie lines up.
Yeah, kind of. And
I think it's one of the only films that I've seen Michael Madsen in where I'm like, "Aw, he's a nice guy."
Yeah, it's kind of the only one.
Yeah.
And also, the character we love the most was the Harvey Keitel character.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was, it is what it is. I'm going to go with The Karate Kid. It's so good. It is way better than you remember it. And Juliet, this is really really important because I've mentioned that to All My Feelings many, many times, and I probably said it on this show a few times. This entire show, this entire channel is dedicated to the people who have not seen these movies. Me, All My Feelings, want you to go out and actually take the time and watch these movies. Some of them are really good and they're like rewatchable. Some of them you only watch it once and you're like, okay, I've seen it. Some of them are absolutely awful and they're awesome at the same time. So the story doesn't make sense, but you are on a thrill ride. All of them.
Father's Day.
All of them are fucking great if you take the time and watch them. Because if you're complaining about anything modern that comes out today, look back, there's a whole library of stuff that you can dive into and it will never, ever run out. Karate Kid is the best. Unforgiven.
Come on. Don't even.
Yeah. It's not even.
The only good thing about the first Fantastic Four was Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Well,
that's only because of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay, fine. The Game or First Night?
I'd have to go with The Game.
Interesting. Chat, please tell us who, because this is a pickle. I'm going to pick The Game as well. Because The First Night is not my favorite adaptation of the whole Lancelot Guinevere story from the Arthur Legends. I like the fact that they took Sean Connery as sort of an old Arthur and made his Guinevere sort of really young and kept it sort of like old versus young kind of a dynamic. It didn't hit. It didn't hit with me. The game is really good.
I said, wow, Paul, a movie that you haven't seen, definitely recommend it.
It's not. The game is really good the first time you watch it. The second time, it's hard. It's really hard. And Paul, dude, watch the game. If only for the one time, just to get where it was going.
You know what film that reminds me of, Meph?
Mm.
That's like, it's really good the first time you watch it, but you can never watch it again. Insomnia.
Yeah, I get it. You can say it about The Sixth Sense, but when you watch The Sixth Sense for the second time, you're looking for the clues that leads up to the end. So it is kind of watchable. Blue Valentine, not Blue Velvet, or The Mask of Zorro.
Blue Valentine is a hard watch.
I know.
It's a hard movie to watch.
I know. Michelle Williams is really good in it.
Yeah.
But
I even think Ryan Gosling is good in it, but it's one of the films like I'll watch it once and I'm done.
yeah.
I never need to watch that film again. The Mask of Zorro, it's stupid and it's fun.
I know. But after rewatching it about a year ago, it's not as bad as you remember. It's really not as bad as you remember. It got panned when it came out. Like it was sort of a movie blockbuster kind of a thing where it's a little bit lighthearted and people don't remember it fondly. It's actually not that bad. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's a 6-7 movie, but it's a really fun popcorn movie. And you really like Antonio Banderas in it. He's like real fun. And hail to you, One Punch Man Tolkien fan.
Oh, come on. This is way too easy.
I was going to say last pairing, but it's so easy. I haven't seen A Mighty Wind. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Home Alone 2
sequels
or Poltergeist 2.
Now, have you seen Poltergeist 2?
I have, sadly.
Okay. Now, I would actually kind of agree with Sander. I would actually kind of go with neither, but we have to.
Yes.
I would still watch Poltergeist 2.
All right.
Just because of the medium that's in it, our tiny medium.
Okay, cool. Paul Harley's like Wet Bandits. Okay. I'm going to watch Poltergeist 2, and I'm not a horror fan, and you guys know it. Those in the chat who have been here for a while, and if you don't know it, I'm not big on horror at all. I can't justify Home Alone 2. I can't. They were trying to capitalize on the massive. You cannot imagine how massive that movie was when the first one when it came out.
It was huge.
It was huge. But yeah, it's I'm gonna pick Poltergeist 2. It's just that good.
Well, that and also the fact that they did basically Home Alone 2. All they did was just do that, but they placed him in a hotel. That's it. He even has the version of the neighbor that his brother convinced him was a killer and everything with the snow shovel. That was just the bird lady.
Yeah,
in the second film.
They went with the same tropes, the same formula, the same everything, and it's just.
He even did the same gag with the Michael Jordan cutout. Yeah.
All right. So we have about 30 minutes to cover a movie that before getting edited had, I think, 60 hours.
Yeah.
60 hours to cut down to 3, and that's just the Redux version or the redo version. But yeah, cut it down to 147 minutes of theatrical cut. And it starts with that whole scene, and correct me if I'm wrong, the dubbing, the sort of inner monologue, where was it first came to be? Because I don't remember. It's not the first movie that had an inner monologue, but it's the first kind of war movie that had it. Sort of gives you that sort of noir vibes, but not really.
Very kind of well, it kind of is a little bit like film noir in a way. Now that you mentioned it, I got like the old classic, pulp stories, pulp detective stories.
Yeah, kind of, but it's not sort of because it's in Vietnam and it's sort of militaristic and kind of hides it in plain sight. So the whole point is we've got now I forgot the name. Willard kind of having this crisis of, and he explains it really well. It's the same crisis that veterans have when they go out into sort of real fighting, and then they're coming back home and they're so not used to the quietness, they want to go back.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah, they're still there. So he's having the same thing, but he hasn't left. So he's technically supposed to be in Saigon. It's not really Saigon, but he's in Saigon, and he's special forces. He wants to go on through the field, but he's in sort of in a non-mission zone, and he goes crazy, drinks, and of course people come in and take him.
Well, he was essentially being like one step away from being court-martialed.
Oh yeah. And they bring him into this meeting where it's sort of like this. And do you know the name of the colonel who's sitting down in the movie?
What? I thought I had it written down.
It's not Colonel, it's General Corman. You know why Corman?
Because it's R. Corman because of Roger Corman.
Because of Roger Corman. Because Coppola was
well, and did you notice that the Harrison Ford's character?
Yeah, he's also named weird.
G. Lucas.
G. Lucas, yes.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford's name is G. Lucas. He's like a colonel as well. And the guy who's supposed to be like a CIA replacement guy, the guy in the white hair, that's the first AD.
Oh, the one who's like...
Yeah, he's not an actor.
Was it Exterminate with Extreme Prejudice?
He has one of the most famous lines in the entire movie, and he's not an actor. They couldn't find an actor to replace the role, but he's like the first AD. He's the first assistant director. He just did it because they fired Harvey Keitel, and then they were having to reshoot this entire scene, so he stepped in to fill in the role. That's it. That's the story. And he has one of the most famous lines in the entire fucking movie, which is insane. So in this, Willard, in terms of the story, gets his mission to go take out Colonel Kurtz, who went crazy and has his own like way of fighting the war, which the Americans doesn't want to do. And
his line too is like charging someone with murder out here is like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500. It's like,
yeah.
Milius had some good little zingers in there.
Milius, like it when he said all the bits that you know from Apocalypse Now, that's me. That's one of the lines.
Yeah.
One of the other lines is the Robert Duvall line. Is like I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
Yeah.
That's John Milius.
Yeah. Well, and also from here, we already get the almost like mental fracture that's it's already inherent in Willard, the fact that he's already confessed the fact that he can't go back to civilian life and how his wife left him essentially, and he's here for the long haul.
Yeah.
But he's reading over Kurtz's reports, and then the more and more and more he reads of the briefing, the more and more he becomes kind of empathetic
Yeah.
to Kurtz.
He sort of feels like, yeah, I think Kurtz is doing right, but that's because he hasn't met Kurtz
yet. Yeah. Well, he's also impressed by him because what he got, he became special ops in what was it when he was 38?
Yeah, he was. He even mentions that sort of like this guy is going to be the chief of staff at some point. It's like he was pinned to go far into the Pentagon. They well, it was so he said he's about to go into 1-star general when he was 49, 42.
Or chief of staff, yeah.
And then chief of staff at 50, something like that. Sort of like they already saw him as sort of this general of generals, and it just went off the cliff.
Yep.
And that's why they wanted to take him out, because they knew he could have done it the way he wanted to do it.
He could have been a real problem. Like it just says when so we're gonna jump back and forth because obviously we got to get this one. But even when he tells that story of when he was in Spec Ops, where he goes like, "Give me a division of men like that, and I'd have this war won in a week."
So he goes on the boat. He meets the crew. They kind of get the lowdown on everything, and we haven't mentioned yet Lawrence Fishburne. Little
Mr.
Larry
Clean
Fishburne was 14 years old when they started to shoot it. That's insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah. He doesn't look 14 to me, but he was 14 years old. And yeah, Paul said, Charlie don't surf. That's Milius.
Yep.
That's total Milius. And speaking of Charlie don't surf, this is Colonel, I have his former name.
It's Lieutenant Kilgore.
Lieutenant. It's not Lieutenant. It's Colonel. Colonel Kilgore, formerly named in the script as Colonel Carnage. I am not joking. Carnage with a K to mask the carnage.
Wow. So what? So apparently he was a big fan of Mortal Kombat.
I have no idea. But original name of Colonel Kilgore is Colonel Carnage. Coppola thought it was a bit much. I am not joking. He thought, well, that's a bit much.
I wouldn't be surprised if another note it was Kill More. Kill More is just as bad as Carnage. What about Kilgore? Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. And one of the things, again, I don't remember if it's from the theatrical cut or from the Redux, is one of the most important things here is when Willard comes in and he talks to him, they just literally completely bombed out this village and they're evacuating these guys. And Kilgore was like, Kilgore. Fuck it. I can't. He puts these death cards. That's something that they got from the GIs in the field. That's actually something that the CIA did, not the army.
Yes. And also that's in the theatrical cut.
And that's the theatrical cut. And another thing is this scene where the soldiers don't want to give this Viet Cong guy a drink.
Yeah, this is also in the theatrical cut too. Yeah, but where he's like, well, a man who's holding his guts with a pan can have a drink out of my canteen any day.
Yeah, and he starts to give him the canteen, and somebody says, well, there's an L. Johnson here. Is it Lance Johnson, the surfer?
The surfer?
He throws the fucking canteen away, and he doesn't actually give him the water to drink. No. Is that Lance? Yeah, is that Lance? So,
that also later when he goes, what? You could either be in combat or you could surf.
Exactly. And he tells that to his two aides, the two other surfers. And the whole point is Willard was told that this guy is going to take him to the mouth of the river that he needs to go to. And the colonel is like, yeah, I don't know who you talk to. It's not me.
Yeah.
And through the surfer, Lance, he gets him to get to the river he needs to go because that village that they bombed through the Valkyrie scene was full of Viet Cong, and they didn't want to go there because people went there and got killed. Like,
Yep.
they got destroyed there, so they didn't want to even go there anyways. But because of the surf...
Because he mentions, like, well, no, they got a 12-foot swell over there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why didn't you say so?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So when everybody's in the helicopter, they were actually in the helicopter shooting. This is one of the inside shots, but like I said, there's an outside shot looking in, which was, yeah, that was dangerous. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very dangerous to do. And like I said, this whole scene with the helicopter getting blown off, you don't really see it here, but it is on stilts. Like, you don't see it here because this is not the helicopter that they actually got exploded. It was a dummy helicopter.
Yep.
Which they had a lot of those dummy helicopters, but they only blew up one for some reason. And then, of course, they destroy the thing, and Kilgore, apart from the most known sentence, what happens is after they destroy that line of that tree line, they mess with the surf. So he gets annoyed that there's no surf. So Willard takes advantage of the fact that there's no tide, there's no surf. He takes Lance and he actually escapes. Now, in the theatrical cut, they don't show the fact that he steals one of the surfboards from the helicopter.
That's correct.
Put it away. In the Redux, they left it in. Right?
Yep.
Why they stole the board? No clue. Like, he steals it, but they don't do anything with it because it's in one of the scenes that got deleted and never brought back to any cut.
Now, it would have made sense had Lance stolen it.
Yeah, but Willard
takes it, but
it just didn't make sense, and they didn't follow through with it.
I could see why they cut it then, because it has no context.
Exactly. But it kind of leads to, I think the next one is the tiger scene or the Playboy scene. Is the Playboy scene in the theatrical cut?
It is, but I don't think the full Playboy.
No,
scene.
not the extra bits.
Yeah.
Not the extra.
No, but just like that, they show up at basically the fueling depot that they have set or stock depot, and they have a bit of a tete-a-tete with the guy who's kind of like the officer there that's taking care of everything, the petty officer. But everything is like, oh no, you stay for the USO show, and then they have the helicopter fly in. They bring out the three playmates and they have them like dance around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they kind of rush the stage where it's like, girls, first and foremost, you should not be tempting. These guys have not seen, well, depends on where they were stationed, but they probably haven't seen ladies in a little while.
Yeah. A lot while.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Sign My Centerfold was in the Redux version.
Yes.
One of them is an actual Playboy playmate, right?
Yeah.
The other one was like a friend of Colleen Camp, and one of them was Colleen Camp. It was completely off kilter, this whole like casting of these Playboy playmates. It's so done. Now, the MC the story with him is he actually did these kind of MC shows with like
the USO.
cheerleaders and USO and that sort of a thing. And he did it over in the States as well, but nothing really came out of it. You know, he was in charge of this kind of a thing. That's why he was cast. He just was good at it, I guess. I don't remember the exact story, but he used to do these kind of things for real. And then, of course, is the tiger scene, right? Is don't get off the boat. I mean, there's a whole...
Well, we do have that. There's that, which is very short. We do have then Willard giving the boat captain more information about the coordinates of what he does, and he has his own kind of inner monologue about what he did.
Yeah,
and then we do have then after that is the villager boat scene in the theatrical cut.
The villager boat scene.
Yeah, where they stumble upon the one villager boat, and they stop.
The massacre scene. Yeah. It's called the puppy massacre scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though they don't massacre a puppy, but they do massacre people because of a puppy.
Yeah.
It's this where they stop a boat and the chief is like, you have to search these people. And the chef is like, there's just food here. There's nothing here. I'm searching. It's like, there's nothing. And at a certain point, he goes deeper into the boat and one of the ladies kind of jumps in. And this is after one of the ladies jumped in and destroyed a full helicopter.
Had a grenade in a hat. Yeah.
So immediately they just, I don't remember the Lawrence Fishburne's character. What is
Mr. Clean?
Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean just goes ape shit and just starts shooting everybody for no good reason. And then, of course, when everybody dies, the chef is like, why did you shoot? She was just reaching for this puppy.
And because Chef finds the puppy,
yeah.
Lance takes the puppy immediately. He's shell-shocked. And the lady's still alive, and Willard is the one who puts her out of her misery. Where it's like, you shot her. It's like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. It's like she was going to die anyway. You're just going to make her suffer. But he said after that, the boys in the boat would never look at me the same way again.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, after they have that run-in with the tiger, where it's like, never get off the boat.
Yep.
Yeah, never get off the boat. And then, of course, they reach sort of like the first checkpoint before they actually go into Cambodia, right? And this is definitely from the theatrical cut. It's this point.
Yes, it's the bridge over the Doulon.
Yeah.
Doulon, yeah.
So this is the point not only where you see the soldiers kind of wishing the boats like take them home, is where the chief kind of confronts Willard with the fact that, yeah, this is Cambodia. We're not supposed to be in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, if it was really 1969, the army hasn't gone into Cambodia to go back into, go around the Viet Cong. I think it was only in 1970 that actually happened. But it was a whole... This one is completely Coppola, where he put that in just to explain why there's sort of a dichotomy between the chief and Willard, because the chief isn't actually he's supposed to follow orders. He's not special ops.
Yeah.
But Willard is. And he's just keep going.
Well, and also the chief's his overall demeanor as it changes, because he actually does care about his men that are on his boat, and as each one of them dies, he gets more and more just completely infuriated with Willard.
Yeah. And this is sort of like, for him, was a point of no return. And actually, this is the point where he starts to lose people.
Yeah.
Because after this is the attack, right? No, it's they get mail from the bridge, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll discuss something that we haven't discussed up until now is when does the movie go into sort of a fantasy drug mode and when it's actually they have their full faculties. And what do I mention about this? Where am I going with this? The whole smoke thing. Now we kind of mentioned smoke when we talked about the Holy Grail. If you guys remember or don't remember, you can go and watch it. Gilliam was like this. I want smoke everywhere, just so people will know we're in a sort of a fantasy zone. Now, in this point,
Well, he also did that in Time Bandits.
yeah, exactly. When there's smoke, this is Coppola's way of telling you, oh, this is like a half a Twilight Zone area. It's there for the full effect, where we're in the Valkyrie scene. This is here. This is going into the Kurtz compound. There's a lot of smoke. There's smoke just before the attack on the boat. And this is where Lance kind of drops a lot of acid. He doesn't admit it, but he drops a lot of acid at this point.
Well, I don't know if it's different in the Redux version or not, but in the theatrical, he said, well, you know that hit of acid I had? I just took it. It was when they got to the Dulong Bridge. That's why he's just out of his mind when he's following Willard. And he's standing on top of ramparts where it's like, do you want to get shot?
Yeah, and it's there, like, this is from the Redux version. This is not in the theatrical cut. I just want to show it. This is the whole French plantation bit.
Yes.
This is just the start of it. That's a big part that they cut away from the theatrical part. It just goes on and on and on and on about these French people that stayed behind after the French occupation left Vietnam. This whole rigmarole has nothing to do with the main story, but Coppola had to put it in
there. Yeah.
I have no idea. After rewatching it, I have no idea why it's there.
Well, I think the only reason why he would bring it up is just because he wanted to emphasize the futility of that war to begin with in the first place, because every single invading power that's ever tried to invade Vietnam never works. It never works. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
I said the only other thing that we had was you mentioned that with the smoke, and you had Lance there with the smoke. Hot potato. But that's when it was when Clean was listening to the tape from his mom that they got the broadside attack, and he ends up getting killed.
Yeah. And it's sort of I knew it was going on, but this is the point where like, oh, this is kind of the inspiration for every single time you sort of, there's a premonition, there's something in the air that, oh, this guy's going to get it because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Cause it's like, oh yeah, he's listening to just a diatribe from his mother saying like, avoid the bullets, don't get shot. It's like, you're going to die.
Yeah. You're dying. And then of course, is the last, before they get to the Kurtz compound, there's a moment there, or is it on the bridge that Willard asks them, where's the CO? And nobody can tell them.
Yeah. That's at Dulong Bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a Dulong Bridge. Yeah. But I thought it was like to me, it was Coppola's symbolic of the entire war. That's like, there's
nobody in charge. Well, even Willard has it like, the people in charge here, his condemnation of them in his own inner monologue.
Yeah. And then of course we come to sort of the crescendo of it, where
Oh, I was gonna say before this, we do have that attack where they had those like toy arrows and everything.
Yeah.
And Chief's like, hey,
When
quit
they
firing, quit wasting ammunition. And he gets up and then gets speared.
Yeah, speared with a fucking that wasn't an arrow.
No.
Spear. And you don't really see the attackers, right?
No, they're just in the theatrical cut you
They're
can't.
hidden in the
It's just from just looking like it's coming from the jungles. You can't
Yeah.
really see anything. But there was that final bit of where Chief is like, no, you're the one, you killed me, and how he tries to strangle Willard as he dies.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course we get to this point where there's like this army of half zombies, half not. We don't actually know. Now they did say that Kurtz assembled an army around him, but it's mostly sort of locals and not Vietnamese people, right? A sort of
It's almost a motley crew because he has Vietnamese people there, he has Cambodian people there, he also has U.S. soldiers that have defected.
Yeah, exactly, including a Willard's the guy who they send in before they sent Willard. And they even warned him, look, we sent this guy, but he vanished. We think he went over to Kurtz's side.
Defected, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say right before that too, that's where before they get to the village, Willard just flat out tells Chef and Lance, hey, this is why we're here.
Yeah. And of course they sorry, I've lost my voice. Of course, the Dennis Hopper character kind of does that introduction to Colonel Kurtz and how amazing he is, blah, 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 blah. And you can tell on Willard's face, it's not going well. He even says to the chef, it's like, yeah, stay in the boat. Stay in the boat. I'll handle this. And it doesn't go well for Willard.
And to be honest,
find out real quick.
To be honest, out of all the people on the P boat, besides the actual chief, the captain of the boat before, I feel the worst for Chef.
I think so too. And rewatching this kind of reminded me, and again, I always go to Tropic Thunder because Tropic Thunder is a movie about a disaster in a movie set in the Vietnam War, blah, 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 sort of modeling over Apocalypse Now.
Oh, it is. 100%.
And a line that I really like is when Robert Downey Jr. says he was a saucier in San Antone. And it didn't really click until I rewatched it this time. It's like, Chef was supposed to be a saucier in Louisiana. It's not really San Antonio, but that's just that tiny little twist there that they did, which is so fucking smart.
What's his character's name? I forgot his name now.
Who?
In Tropic Thunder, the younger guy who is the rapper. He's
Pacino.
Yes.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. All I know is he sold Booty Sweat.
Booty Sweat, yeah.
And apparently was in a relationship with Lance Bass from NSYNC. But anyway, no, he was supposed to be, he's basically just the version of Mr. Clean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. The young, immature guy, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So what Kurtz does is literally he asks Willard, "Are you an assassin?" And Willard said, "I'm a soldier." And then,
no, you're not.
Yeah, Kurtz knew. Let's just say this: Kurtz was crazy, but he's not dumb.
It's classified like it's not so classified now anymore, is it?
Yeah. And there was a point where he broke Willard down. He wanted to break him down physically before he started with his whole spiel of going into like the poems and all that stuff. And at the very end, he tells him a story about how many horrific things he had to do in order to survive and make sure his men survives. And it kind of flips around when Willard kills him, when he says the horror, because Willard used horror to make sure, like, this guy doesn't get what he wants.
Well, if you think about it too, the way that Kurt's kind of indoctrinated people, it's pretty much the point by point kind of basis, the way that they kind of break you down when you go to boot camp. They break you down physically to break you down mentally to make you one part of a cohesive unit.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah. Makes sense.
So it's kind of like military training, which is it's right up Kurtz's alley. So
right up Kurtz's alley. And it's so strange because Willard feels remorse, but doesn't really feel remorse. It's so strange. That's why I think Coppola had a lot of problems with finishing up the movie, because he knew where he wanted to go, but he didn't know how to set things up.
to really get there. Yeah.
Again, he had to frantically write an ending, and we were at like week 8, 9 of the shoot because they just had Brando for 3 weeks. That's it.
Yeah.
They had to literally force him to do it. The scene with the cow, was it included in the theatrical? I'm not sure.
Yes, which I was really surprised by, even when it's showing them actually cutting into.
Yeah, they actually killed that
Yeah.
buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really weird. Really weird. I can't really show it, but yeah. I wanted to get one of the most like iconic shots. And
Emerging from the water? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so strange that it's such an iconic shot, but it's literally the end of the movie. Hold on.
There it is.
Like, it is literally the end of the movie when we get to this shot. But this shot is one of the most famous ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became such an iconic moment in the movie. It was there in the trailer even. They sold it with this shot.
Yep.
Because it's a good shot. Let's just say that. Cinematically, it looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. So after Willard kills Kurtz, he has that monologue and it ends.
And he takes, what's important is the fact that he takes Kurtz's memoirs.
Yeah.
Because he did promise Kurtz, it's like, well, tell my son the truth about me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an ugly ending.
What's the interesting thing about it too is it's almost as if every single person in the compound knew that this was going to happen, and that's why they let him go. And in fact, when he drops his weapon, they all drop theirs too.
Yeah, exactly.
And Lance, he just lost his mind there for a little bit. He went full native.
Oh yeah, he went full crazy. But that's the one thing that actually saved him.
Yeah,
Chef
on the boat,
went crazy, and got his head cut off.
Yep.
Poor guy. All right, that is actually it, ladies and gentlemen. Next week is going to be strange because we have a little bit of IRL stuff intervening. So pay close attention to about Wednesday, Thursday. That's where I kind of publish the entire stream for you to sort of mark and bookmark and keep a reminder of. It's either going to be Showgirls, Paul Verhoeven Showgirls.
Oh, I know who's going to be the guest for that one.
Or UHF, which is a completely different guest.
Yep.
So if you can, watch both. if you want to. I don't recommend Showgirls. It's kind of a thing. It's kind of a thing. Anyway, yeah, so I can't really tell you what's going to be next week, but it's going to be a show. That's what all I'm saying.
Paul had a great question. I do believe that's the Redux because the theatrical does not have it doesn't actually show the strike.
Yeah, the final cut doesn't. I don't think. I don't really remember. Anyway, please, if you haven't watched Apocalypse Now by now, go watch the Redux version. It is long. It's meandering at some points, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very much worth it. And if you want to go into like stuff that we haven't covered, watch Heart of Darkness, the documentary. It is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. When you watch the documentary, you're like, how is this movie even made? Yeah, that's the major question. And it's very interesting. So from me, from all my feelings, have a great evening. We're going to divert you to Pop Culture Minefield. I think they're doing Equalizer 2 this week. So let's have a raid and let's have a great week, ladies and gentlemen. And until next week, remember, guys, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. You're still here? It's over. Go home.